Well, hello there, friends. It's Wednesday, so that means I have some good news. It's May 11th, and whatever day you get a chance to check this out, I'm just happy that you're going to give it a listen. I want to spend just a few moments with you today, sharing a little bit of good news out of God's Word and a story too, because who doesn't love a good story? But I want to start with a question that I had asked to me after Sunday. On Sunday, we began a new series at our church here in Douglas, and it's on how we grow our faith. So it's called Grow in Faith. So we're just talking about what we need to grow in and how people of faith need to grow. So we were talking about that on Sunday, and we talked about how we need to grow in goodness. And 2 Peter chapter 1 says that we are to add to our faith goodness. And so we were talking about how we need to grow in that area of goodness. So somebody asked me this question. What does goodness look like? What does goodness look like? And it's a good question. It's a great question. What does it mean? So and I did on Sunday, I said we need to grow in goodness. Well, what does goodness look like? And often we look and we think of good and being good. It's something that we can see. But I want to suggest to you today that goodness is more than just an action or the actions that we see. Now we can see good things and we can see good actions, and sometimes that's how we decide if something's good or not, based on, and especially when we're talking about people and actions, we kind of like, oh, they're being a good person. Well, why? Because of what they're doing. And yet I want us to go a little bit deeper than that. And I want us to think about this question of what does goodness look like, but I also want us to think about what is it underneath what we're seeing that matters? Because as I understand goodness in God's Word, it goes deeper than just what we're doing. And we shouldn't get just always caught up in the action, but understand the motivation. What's behind the action? What's behind what we're doing? And so I want us to think about that for a moment today. And I want to share with you a story out of God's Word that I think helps us understand that goodness is rooted not simply in our actions, but what is motivating us to do what we're doing. And that's where we begin to see real goodness, and we see what the Apostle Peter is really talking about in 2 Peter, which is this desire for excellence. This desire for excellence. And that's really the definition of goodness, is that we desire good things, yes. Good actions, yes. But excellent, to be excellent in our behavior and in our attitudes and in our thinking. And I touched on that on Sunday. So what makes something good? What does goodness look like? And more importantly, I think, what motivates us to do good? What motivates us to do good? I'd be curious to know how you would answer the question. What does goodness look like? What does goodness look like? Well, I want to tell you a story. I want to share with you a quick story. For some of you, maybe it's a reminder of a story you know. For others, it might be a new story. But in order to answer this question, what does goodness look like? And as I was pondering this and how I was going to respond to the person, I thought of a story that Jesus told. And it's a story you can find in Luke chapter 10 of the Bible. And in Luke chapter 10, we find this story. It's a parable. The parable of what's become known as the parable of the Good Samaritan. So as I'm thinking about what does goodness look like, I'm like, I think Jesus told a story to help us understand what it looks like. And so I got reading and studying this parable again, the parable of the Good Samaritan. Let me kind of tell you this story. I'm going to read it out of God's Word, out of the New Living Translation. And listen to this story. And this will help us understand what goodness looks like, but also what motivates or what is behind the goodness that we see. Jesus replied with a story. A Jewish man was traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho, and he was attacked by bandits. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him up, and left him half dead beside the road. By chance, a priest came along, but when he saw the man lying there, he crossed to the other side of the road and passed him by. A temple assistant walked over and looked at him lying there, but he also passed by on the other side. Then a despised Samaritan came along, and when he saw the man, he felt compassion for him. Going over to him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with olive oil and wine and bandaged them. Then he put the man on his own donkey and took him to an inn where he took care of him. The next day he handed the innkeeper 2 silver coins, telling him, "Take care of this man. If this bill runs higher than this, I'll pay you the next time I'm here." And so here's a story. And I think this story answers the question I posed just a minute ago. The question that was posed to me as we talk about adding to our faith goodness and growing in goodness, we look to this parable, the Good Samaritan, and we see somebody in need, and we see different responses to that need. And if I were to ask you, well, the question, what does goodness look like? Who would you point to in the story? Well, duh, it's kind of obvious, right? The Good Samaritan, the Samaritan. The most unlikely of the three to do quote unquote good, did good. And he took care of that person in need. What a powerful story. What a powerful example of what goodness looks like. This is what goodness looks like. But what I want to draw your attention to today, because we can look around in this world and we can see people doing good. And I think we can even begin to identify, yeah, that's a good deed. That's a good thing. That was a very nice thing that person did. This is the right thing to do. This is the right behavior. But what is it that motivates us? And maybe if we understand what motivates good behavior, then we can grow in that. And what we read here is this. We read that what made the Samaritan stop and do something, do good, you might say, what made the Samaritan stop is compassion. The Samaritan came along, and when he saw the man, he felt compassion for him. And so I want to suggest to you today that what we need in order to do good and in order to grow in goodness, what we need compassion. Now, don't get me wrong, I think we need more goodness and more good things and more good deeds in the world in which we live. We want to do good. And yet, doing good needs to be motivated. It needs to go deeper, and our motivation is compassion. We need more compassion. I'm convinced of that. As we think about growing in our faith and adding goodness, we need to be motivated by compassion. We need to be compassionate towards one another. And if we are moved by compassion, then the result of that, the actions will be good. They will be good. And so Jesus tells this story that I believe helps answer the question that was posed to me. What does goodness look like? Well, goodness looks like the Good Samaritan. The actions, yes, but the motivation as well. And so, a question that I leave with you today is this. Just as someone left me with a good question that made me wrestle with some things and discover good news, the question I leave with you is this. What motivates you? Are you moved by compassion? Are you moved by compassion? Because we need more people who are motivated and moved by compassion. Here's the best news of all, my friends, for you today. That we have a God who is moved by compassion, and he is motivated by compassion. And so as we seek to be people of compassion, to be motivated and moved by compassion, that will then result in good things and good deeds. Let us remember that if we do that, we are simply following the example of our Father in heaven. God bless you. Peace be with you. Have a great Good News Wednesday.